Now, when we come to the education side of things, once we have achieved the national democratic revolution and we have a socialist government, which is the means of production in the hands of the people, we'll have to address the education. Now, the education is addressed similarly to the system that we already have. Doesn't mean we have to do away with it. It just means we have to uh, revolutionize the system. We don't modify, but we have to revolutionize it, meaning bring it to the people. Now, in terms of the primary sector of things, the primary schooling needs to address the primary sector of things. Therefore, the primary school education has to be based on raw materials that the country has. For example, in South Africa, we have the gold, we have, the platinum, we have the coal, we have the uranium. So the primary education will have to be based on that, so that the children in our primary schools understand where these things are found. Where is the golden belt in South Africa? Where is the coal belt in South Africa? Where is the platinum belt? Where is the diamond belt? Where are they found? How are they harvested? How are they taken out of the ground? What kind of machines is being used? What kind of innovation is there to deal with harvesting these raw materials? The primary school needs to learn about the primary sector. Obviously, not in a how could we put it, in an unrealistic manner, but they have to learn about it in a tangible way where a 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old can understand. Now, when we come to the secondary sector of economy, it needs to address the issues of the secondary schooling or the high school of the nation. Now, we know the secondary sector of the economy is manufacturing. We're talking about when things are being manufactured, and we talked about it that in South Africa is close to non-existent. We don't have this because the cabal, the 10% cabal, owns our primary sector and owns our secondary and owns the tertiary, owns the means of production. So they dictate what happens to the means of production, and that's why they take our raw materials and they'll go and manufacture them somewhere else, making sure that our manufacturing, our secondary sector is at a small scale. We need to change that when we have achieved the national democratic revolution, which means that the means of production is in the hands of the people, in short. The secondary sector needs to address the manufacturing side of things. Someone in high school needs to learn how to manufacture. How can I manufacture t-shirt? How can I get into manufacturing of textile? How can I get into manufacturing of watches? How to get into manufacturing of rings, jewelry? How to get to manufacturing of cell phones, innovation, stuff like that. It needs to be the secondary sector education. These are the ones that need to understand, and it will be connected to the raw materials of the nations that we have, which is the primary sector. So it will be a linked based education. It will not become a limbo state kind of education which we are having currently now, the French lunatic, kind of education that we are having now. Excuse my my stuttering a little bit. But yeah. And then when we come to the tertiary education, moving from the primary to the secondary and now to the tertiary education, which our economy currently is based on this tertiary education. Our graduates are the ones who are filling this primary and secondary parts of the economy in terms of the primary and secondary sector of the economy. It is this part. So the cabal made sure that here, now the cabal here in the tertiary sector or the tertiary education is where they recruit what we call prodigies or apprentices who are going to make it into this 10% cabal, but they don't really make it to the 10% cabal. They're just going to be the handlers of the regulator. And we said the regulator is what is the state, is the government. The government and the state is the regulator of this cabal, because they have no power, because they don't own the means of production. And that's why it is important as a nation we own our own means of production, our raw material, our manufacturing, and our financial side of these two sectors as well, which is the tertiary sector. Now, the tertiary, we know that currently it is the theory and practical based education. For example, when you look into people who are doing medicine, you'll find that they're doing the theory first part of it, and the second part of it, they go to hospitals and they do practicals. People are into we are called geologists. They do theory. The second part of it, they start going to mines and to do the practical there in those mines. So our economy is largely based on the tertiary education, and it is done so deliberately, so that those who are in the primary and the secondary education, even if they do get their matric certificate, it's null and void. It's like a toilet paper, because they will not be understanding the aspect of the economy, which is important, which they have to understand, which lies here in the tertiary side of things. But if we are able to own the means of production, then we'll be opening up this part to filter to the secondary and to the primary sector, so that a child, even with a grade 7 a certificate, at that point we have the National Democratic, would be able to function in this raw material side of economy. Even if he has a grade 7 education, a child that has a grade 12 education will be able to function in the raw material side of things and the manufacturing side of things. A child that will be having a tertiary education certificate, like your diplomas, your degrees, bachelors and PhDs, will be able to oversee this two side of economy. Now, this is how our education will make a change into the lives of our people. If our government becomes a socialist government, and that's why it is important that we deal with this cabal, because it is this cabal that's gatekeeping, that is gatekeeping our people, which is the 90% that we talked about. The 90% of the people is being gatekept by this 10% cabal, so that we can benefit from the resources of our nation, the means of production. Now, when we can take it a step a notch, we'll say that once we have achieved this education, in our next video, we'll explain what will begin to happen when we have the National Democratic Revolution achieved, which will give us this kind of an education, which will be speaking to the masses of our people and reskilling our people and re-educating our people. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to wait until we achieve the National Democratic Revolution to apply this. But the reason why we might achieve it, because the government does not have power. The government might try to push legislature and laws to try to redress this, but because of this cabal and their financial hegemony, they can push it back, because politicians are easily bought. We talked about the government, they're just regulators. Because they're politicians, they can be bought by this cabal easily. Given a house in Santen, given a house in Cape Town, given a house in wherever, Saudi Arabia, wherever, and then so that they can keep the 90% of price, so that this 10% can always profit from our production, from our workforce, exploiting the workers and the poor of South Africa. So in our next video, we'll go even a little bit deeper in terms of the education side of things. Thank you.